I'm Josh Hancock. I'm the owner of the Austin Powers 1967 Shaguar. I have this odd world that I actually have an education in automobiles. I have a degree in automotive marketing, which is kind of unusual. I didn't strike out in the automotive industry right away. I worked in entertainment, and then I bridged those two worlds of cars and entertainment. And I became an art director for Cars in the Movies. Oftentimes had to take the credit of picture car coordinator because there was no credit for art director at the time. But I got to bring those worlds together because they're two different languages. They really are. The car world and the movie world sometimes don't talk the same language. What I did was I carved out a role to where there's a car guy in the room, because those decisions get passed around about cars in the movies. So it's supposed to be the responsibility of the production designer, and the director and the writer may have very strong opinions, and then it goes to the production designer as to what's going to happen. Now, I was always brought in as, well, this is what we're thinking about, or we want you to tell us what to think about and base it on the character. And that's how I sort of carved out a role, was basing cars on characters. Now, I just read scripts, and the director wants to know, if I take this product placement, is it going to look bad? Is this right for the guy? And the director has to have a lot of power to be able to say that, because now the studio really dictates what's going to be in the film. And product placement has taken over on big bucks films.
What do you think is a case of one of the most mismatched cars in movies that you can think of?
Well, it's funny that you said that, MDX, because I agree with that. Iron Man in the Audis, everybody thought that was fantastic. Yes and no. I wanted it to be something a little bit more custom, and I just thought that Iron Man would have a car that would be like a prototype. It was great for Audi. I'm not saying it was terrible, but I think they could have been more creative.
Well, yeah, I feel that movie coming out in 2008, that's the hype of the Audi R8 at the time.
Yeah.
So it tracks, but maybe in hindsight, it's you would want something more for him.
And they also could have graduated. We graduated in the Austin Powers film. So we graduated, if you look, the first film we didn't have any money. So that's why there was only one car. We didn't have the money to double it. I didn't work every day on the set because we didn't have the money, Yeah. And we graduated with a lot of interesting cars. It was when the Mini Cooper came out. And so Austin's dad had a Mini Cooper. And then he time traveled in a Volkswagen Bug convertible, which we painted like crazy. And we went to Volkswagen, who were developing, they had said they were going to come out with a Bug convertible. So we went to them and said, great, you're coming out with a Bug convertible. We need one for the film. They said, oh no, you can't put one in your film. And we were like, really? I went and had two of them built. One was for marketing, one was for not. I was driving around the car before we painted it up. I went into a Volkswagen dealership to have them look at something on the car, and the guy came to me and said, you better go now, because we ran the VIN and Volkswagen wants us to hold the car since you made it into a convertible. And I said, okay, and I left. We did the movie. Guess who knocks on the door to the studio saying, we want to use the Austin Power Jaguar to promote the new Bugs. They came back, they wanted to replicate our movie car and take it around to college campuses to promote and get orders for the convertible. And I just screamed. I was like, where were you guys? That often happens, Cars get revealed too in movies, and sometimes it's leaked. Sex and the City, when they did the film, they were using a Mercedes GLK, as I remember. It wasn't out yet. They were trying to hide it. It leaked. It did so much for the brand, because all of a sudden everybody was like, oh, there's a new Mercedes. It's going to be in the movie. I want it. And people went and signed up for the car.
Everyone needs what Samantha has.
Yeah. You said that, I didn't. Yeah. People, you take Desperate Housewives. Eva Longoria gets an Aston convertible. The show airs, Aston Martin dealerships are getting calls, I want the convertible that Eva Longoria has in the show. For Aston, that was huge. And of course, they didn't have enough cars.
How did you feel when the Volkswagen people came back? Did you feel smug? Oh, we did the right thing, clearly?
One of the people that we had talked to, I called, and they were lower down, and they were much more receptive to it. And they were like, can you see what I'm up against? Corporately, you run into so many problems. Dealing with the manufacturers and what they want or don't want. A good example is John Wick. So John Wick, when they put a Charger, four-door black Charger, he used that car and killed people with the car. For the next movie, they had me meet with the director because they wanted Mustang in the film, and they were willing to do a lot to get Mustang in the film. We will help you with the 429 bosses, we'll help you build some, we'll pay for that, as long as a Mustang shows up in the film. And we were really having conversations on the phone. We'd love to do this, but the director was like, well, you know, I need to be able to kill people with the car. You can't kill people with the car, but can I shoot people out the window and kill them from the car? You know, this is the conversation you have. Sure, you can shoot and kill people out of the car, you just can't hit them with the car. Some of these contracts are very strict.
And that reminds me a lot of the gaming world, where back in the day, they used to have like incredibly intense damage models in racing games, and like half of the fun was being able to wreck the car. But nowadays, they're all just bricks, and they hit a wall, and you don't see any like deformation, because nobody wants their car to look like the one that's just going to get pancaked in an accident. So
have you seen they take a car and they smash it into a wall, and then, you know, a truck? Can I tell you how many people say, oh, I'm not getting the new Bronco because it got smashed? Well, it's all baloney. And people actually take that into consideration, and it's not true.
So let's talk about the Shaguar specifically. What went into it? How do you approach it? I mean, you talked about wanting a car that reflects the character, but what change did you make from the paint job to anything else? Like, just tell me.
Exclusive here. No, I just got a certificate. You'll love this. This is from the Jaguar Heritage Trust, which really registers the car and officiates when it was made, the engine number, vehicle number. But let's, you know, one of the things it does is show all matching numbers, you know, which is great. It's funny, somebody at Jaguar suggested that I get this, and you go through this process, and then sort of the car gets registered. One of the things that it says on here from the manufacturer's certificate is left-hand drive. Well, I couldn't find a right-hand drive car at the time. They were all really crappy. Turns out they built many more left-hand drives than they did right-hand drives, because the United States was the biggest market. So there was a guy in Costa Mesa, California. It's called European Collectibles. Not only did I buy the car there, he had a kit. It was authorized factory parts and instructions. The car was made to switch from left-hand to right-hand drive. There are a lot of cars actually that are made that way. He was in the business of buying Jaguars and converting them, and his biggest market was airline pilots in New Zealand. Not kidding. So it was a rather common practice. So I had him do it for the movie, because the only other car I could find right-hand drive that was decent was in England, and we didn't have the money to get it. He did the conversion on the car. That was specifically done for the movie. You can't tell. And then, of course, the paint job, which is pretty amazing, with a beautiful clear coat, and it has held up all these years. I mean, a Jaguar touched it up, actually, after Madonna tap danced on the back of it in that music video. I probably would have left it, but they thought they were doing me a favor, because her heels had made these marks.
Yeah, that's history in its own right to leave it there.
It is. It's patina. It's celebrity patina. It toured around the country, and instead of taking money for that, I would have them do work on the car, which was great. The cars pretty much got restored in that way. And then we did mechanical to make sure that it's all great. It took me 6 months to get parts for brakes, fuel system, just to update. But the car's great, and the car always was great. You know, movie cars, as we know, there's usually a beauty car, which is the real thing, and then you make how many ever you need for the driving shots. If we're going to put something up on a camera card, you got a conversation in the car. It takes so long to rig that car, you've got to have another car, because on that same day, you want to shoot B-roll with the car. You can't unrig it and rig it, you know, it just takes too long. Now it's a lot easier with the way cameras work, but then it was much worse. We got away with one car. I was so nervous. And then in the second film, because we were broadening out with other cars, we just didn't feel it necessary to do another car at that point. It didn't. The film didn't hinge. If the car got wrecked, we'd be okay. The first film, it really did hinge on that car. And I'm glad now that there was only one car, because I don't have to deal with a competitor in the auction world, you know?
So when you were building the Shaguar, obviously in its stock form, that is a beautiful car. Did you feel at any point when you were painting it and doing all this where you're like, damn, we're ruining something gorgeous? Or were you just like excited, especially for the project? And like, how did you feel?
I always knew it could be repainted. Seeing him build so many conversions, because that existed in the car anyway, and it was made to do that, there was nothing detrimental in that. I didn't do anything that was detrimental to the car. I did this movie about Graceland. I had to go find 3 '59 Cadillacs. Again, we bought a beauty car that was a convertible, spent a lot of money. And then I went and found 2 coupes and we cut the roofs off. And then with one of them, I had to make it look like it was hit by a train, that it came up and it was running from the train. I took a forklift. They parked the forklift and I drove the car up and down by the forklift to scrape the side of it completely so we could get, we would do that now in CGI, but then we did it.
Yeah, so you just had to practically scrape it up.
So I wrecked a '59 Cadillac, okay? I want to apologize now. Didn't mean to. I felt pretty bad about that.
Understandably, I'd feel horrible as well, and I don't know how you sleep at night. What other like career moments are really highlights to you? I mean, I just rewatched all those, or rather watched them for the first time, the Austin Power movies, and yeah, the Mini Cooper's great.
So you hadn't watched them, Griffin, really?
I have not watched. Listen,
Okay.
I'm but 26 years old. The first one came out before I was born.
All
you
right.
cut me a little bit of
Fine.
slack there.
Age me. I also did the movie Casino with Robert De Niro. You've probably never seen that film.
I haven't, but I know it.
Scorsese film. It's actually a great example of, he is very specific on cars. He's a director, and that's why the producer called me and said, I need you to come talk to him about cars, right? You're not going to stay the whole movie, which I did, by the way, because he was like, I said, well, Marty, I have to leave in 2 weeks. He goes, no, you're not leaving. You're not leaving. Hey. Well, I'm not in the budget, and he's like, I don't, budget? Me? See, but let's walk with me, We go down to the producer's office. He's like, Josh is staying for the film. She goes, oh, whatever you want. I walk out and she goes, what did you do? I said, I didn't do anything. So I really went in to do all the research because he wants to know what the real story was. We all had FBI agents that we interface with for what really happened because it's based on a true story. And so my FBI guy was very involved with all the cars. Marty wanted to know, how did they use cars and get away with it, and license plates and what happened? And this guy was just a wealth of information on how they got cars, what the cars were. So I was doing all of that, and I had an office with just thousands of Polaroids of cars. So he would come in and we would, he was still working on the script, and I say, well, this is what they use here, this is what they use there. And he would say, that looks like we did it for the movie, so we have to change it, and it's amazing because he's so keen. Cars to him are as important as clothes, sets, props. He gives them the same importance, which is wonderful for somebody like me. I had a garage in Las Vegas, 2 full-time mechanics. I had a shop in LA, Cinema Vehicle Services, was preparing cars, a 6-car carrier going back and forth. There were so many principal cars in that movie. And for background, even if there's going to be a reflection in glass, we'd have to put 40 cars on the street that were period correct. So when I opened up the door, if you saw the reflection, they were correct. That was a whole other thing. I hired a bunch of film students who were really gung-ho. I knew they'd be great to people. They were local, so they knew people who owned cars. And I would have to go, and we would have these meets at the shopping mall, and I would look over 100 cars and pick out the cars. If the hubcaps weren't right or the antennas weren't right, I would knock them out, or we would pay to change them. But it was a lot of work. 6 months to be in Vegas to do that film end to end. And it's 4 time periods as well. I had to research what the original character drove, and he was into Eldorados. I had to get all those Eldorados and double them, except for the car that the assassination attempt gets blown up. I had to do 6 Eldorados. I bought 1 Biarritz because it was a Biarritz, and then we had to fake the Biarritz, which had a stainless steel roof that went back to a quarter. We just painted that, and it worked just fine for camera. When the car blows up, there's an insert shot of the dash. Well, we had to take a car, chop it in half, take the engine out, put all the special effects rigs in so that flames come out of the vents. I chopped up a lot of cars for that film. Everything has to be exactly right for him in his films. He's really specific, and those are the guys that came to me for help. You know, I worked with Francis Ford Coppola. He's the same way. He's a huge car guy.
Is there anything else that you want to add? What didn't I ask you?
The car is in the Mecum auction in January in Kissimmee, Florida. There will be 4,500 cars going off in that auction. There are some other famous cars. Jerry Seinfeld owns a 917 Porsche that formerly was owned by Steve McQueen, that was the movie car in Le Mans that McQueen drove without a stunt driver. So that car is a real 917 race car, but it was the movie car. That is another example of the provenance of that car is highly increased because it was in a film. And who owned it? Celebrity, celebrity, celebrity does have an effect. Movies have an effect. So it's going to be a really interesting auction. And I'm hoping that somebody who doesn't get the 917 says, well, I should have a Shaguar instead.
One other question, I guess, that just came to mind.
Now, you said it was the last question before.
I'm a liar, Josh. Okay, that's what this is.
Very good. Go ahead.
What's your daily driver?
Well, this is going to get me in trouble with the Utopian audience. My daily driver is a Mach-E GT Performance Edition.
I think we like Mach-E's around here.
We do like them around here.
Yeah.
At Galpin. As a daily driver, it's a fantastic. Well, David Terry has an i3, so it's okay, David.
He's a big believer in EVs so long as you have home charging.
As long as you have home charging. You know, Jim Farley, CEO of Ford Motor Company, as we know, he's been driving a Chinese car. Did you know that, right? For 6 months. Turns out what that car is it's pretty much a copy of a Porsche Taycan. Does everything a Taycan does really well for $36,000. Before that, you know, his daily driver is a Ford Lightning F-150 electric truck. What I like that Jim says is, I drive this because it's fun. On a daily basis in Los Angeles, my Mach-E does 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. I feel like I can jump over cars. The car never gets tired. But the bottom line is, it's fun to drive. That's why I drive it. And I wanted to experience ownership of an electric car. I mean, I love ICE cars, there's no doubt about it. Mustang 5.0, 6-speed manual, another car that's no longer a daily, but a car that I love.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Josh. It was a pleasure chatting with you and
Thank you.
Getting to know you and about the industry.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right. You can't put airbags in it. I've never seen anybody put airbags in a resto mod, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem when people go to get a resto mod and they want to ride around with their kids. Safety-wise, not great. No side airbags.
It's still a 60-year-old car.
You think about it, right.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is when you get that resto mod, you've got a classic 66 to 77. So, you know, there lie another conundrum. But a lot of people are going for that new, and they're really gaining traction.
It's like, your kid's safety be damned, you have the coolest car on the block.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I've got 3 kids. I've only got 1 truck, so I can lose a child.
Exactly.
For the truck.
Yeah, the truck's 101.
As car guys, you know,
100%.
we know wit's important.
We got our priorities straight.
We do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he wasn't that smart anyway. It's a little off.